Our mission at SD Bullion is clear: the lowest cost gold and silver available online. While we do not have pretty blue boxes, free shipping, 4% credit card fees, or glamorous gold and silver infomercials, SD Bullion has the lowest prices that may save you hundreds on your next order. So before you make your next investment, do the math and join the over 15,000 new customers who have recently made the switch to SD Bullion. Why pay more?
Hey everyone, this is Elijah Johnson with FinanceandLiberty.com, and back with us today is Bill Murphy from LaMetropoleCafe.com and also co-founder of GATA.org, the Gold Antitrust Action Committee. Bill, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me back, Elijah. Good to be here.
All right, well, I'd first like to discuss a little bit about precious metal manipulation. Now, you were recently on ReluctantPreppers.com, and you said that things with respect to precious metal price suppression have been changing ever since the beginning of the year. Did you want to discuss a little bit about this?
Yeah, Elijah, my pleasure. It first started really last October when we noticed the gold cartel was selling gold and silver like we've never seen on a daily basis before, and it was like they were manic, and it appeared they were, at the time we mentioned, maybe this was part of an end game in which they're trying to get the specs short so that they could cover their own short positions. And during that time, for example, silver went down an unprecedented 15 days in a row. And sure enough, since then, we've had it gradually play out, and it went into high gear at the beginning of the year when, gold closed the end of the year, I think at 1062, and it rallied $200 in a very short period of time. And it was held until just the last, over the weekend and Friday when they attacked, and on Monday brought gold back down, testing 1,200, but it's holding up very well, and I think we are part of an endgame scenario.
You were talking about, before we started the interview, you were talking about how gold was overbought technically, but oversold fundamentally. Did you want to discuss a little bit about this?
Yeah, it's a good point, because obviously from a technical standpoint, it's way overbought, and it's being talked about by a lot of the analysts, and rightfully so, because of the way it shot up. I mean, the move up last Thursday was unprecedented in recent memory in terms of depth. It shattered all these, what we call the gold cartel rules, where they stiff it at 1%, and but the maximum they would ever let it go is 2%. It went up over 4%. At one point, it was up much more than that. So this is something has really changed. And technically, however, it's still overbought, even though it's correcting. The ideal, as I mentioned, would be for it just to hold here and work off that condition quietly. But from a fundamental standpoint, it's ridiculously oversold. I mean, the gold cartel has forced the prices of gold and silver down to unsustainable, artificially low prices. I mean, if gold had kept up with inflation, for example, forget all the QE and everything else this past year, it would be more than double what it is today. So, yeah, technically short term, it's overbought, and a lot of people are looking to see it go a lot lower before it goes up. But if the GATA scenario, plays out, it just may, diddle around here for a while and work off its condition and start to move back up. This last few days, they've had these mini spikes, which I focus on it all the time, where they knocked the price down, and after the Fed minutes yesterday, it came right back. It just happened 4 times in a row. So you never can say what's going to happen, but this is very different. And if we can get gold back above, say, I don't know, pick a number, 1220, 1225, look out.
So how do you see that the demand for gold and silver, if you compare the demand we saw for gold and silver in 2015, how does the beginning of 2016 here, how does that compare?
Well, the retail market has picked up because of the safe haven trade, but jeepers, last year was the Chinese demand was off the charts, and it's always been good in India and so on, and it meant little. I mean, nothing meant a thing when the gold cartel was able to do what they wanted to do. And now with a lot of economic chaos in world stock markets and concerned over what's going on, and from our standpoint, the plunge protection team and counterparty risk management group has helped prop up the market, and the propaganda is about how things are really so good, and it's run its course. And now you're seeing markets under severe pressure, and with all the quantitative easing measures and low interest rates running its course too, a big shift is going into gold and silver. And I think it's just the beginning of a historic move. And in terms of the demand, it's been there. And it's shifting, as I mentioned, into the safe haven territory. And I think it's going to overpower the bad guys' ability. And this is the key to the entire market, to suppress the price with them having enough physical supply to get the job done.
No, you were talking about how there's a lot of demand coming from China. Do you think this is partly because of the economic problems we're seeing in China right now?
Well, I'll leave to others that are, really honed in on that. But, basically, China has just been a massive buyer this past years. And we even noticed this back in, the beginning of the century, when it was not reported for 5 years. And the Gada Camp, in my commentary through this wonderful source, which is a long story, reported them doing all this buying through intermediaries, a lot of it out of Australia and so on. And it was never taken into account by GFMS, the establishment, numbers people. They just ignored it because it was central bank supply hitting the market to meet that demand. And all of a sudden, the Chinese announced they had 450 tons of gold, which has gone way, way up since then. But it's never reported properly. And because they don't want to, the establishment doesn't want the investment world to know what these central banks have been doing. But if my thinking is correct, and it's just a guess, that they're hitting the wall with that ability to hit the market. And that's the whole name of the gold market. Everything else is secondary.
Now, you recently did an interview with Shadow of Truth, and you said that, quote, Eastern Hemisphere demand for physical gold and silver is overwhelming the paper manipulators. So is that what you see, that the demand coming from the East might actually end the manipulation, or the gold manipulators and the gold cartel won't be able to manipulate the price anymore?
Well, they're going to be there, but they had this managed retreat through 2011. Then they decided, because they knew they were going to do all this quantitative easing, I guess, and so on, they had to diffuse the gold price and dropped it $875 when all the fundamentals were still bullish. And from a Gada perspective, in our standpoint, the key is the ability of the physical market to overpower the supply, the excess supply coming from the gold cartel in both gold and silver, and it will overpower them. And the demand, in the East is just fueling other demand, and it's eventually, we said that they would reach a tipping point in which they would be overpowered. I think it's a process, and it doesn't mean they're always just going to run away immediately, but it's going to reach the point where they're unable to do what they've been doing these past 4 years, and I think that is the case now. But again, it's a process. We had the run up, and this is nothing if I'm correct, and what they've done here to put these precious metals at artificially low prices. You've got something historic coming, and it's occurring, gradually.
You also talked about in that same interview that once silver rises above $18.50 an ounce, then we'll see a move like we saw in 2011. Did you want to discuss a little bit about this?
Sure, happy to. I mean, if you look at a silver chart, you had this massive base below 1450, and that was breaking out of that base was significant. You got another monthly area in the right above 15, which is where it's holding now, significant. But the big, huge base formed over the recent passes would be completed at 1850, and it's huge. And we don't know where the bad guys have got the silver to do what they've done, but if we're correct, they're running out, and they're hitting the wall. And if it takes out 1850, we ought to get a violent move to the upside. I mean, that's just a number, but if you look at a chart and spread it out, you can see this huge base would be completed. And the comment here has been, what I've dealt with the past couple of months is look at the bases in the HUI, for example, and then gold and silver. Technically even, gold, silver, and the shares via the HUI have completed these massive bases which can support these huge moves to the upside, and they're occurring. And now you've had a setback, but we'll see. The biggest moves of all come, they don't correct like people believe they normally will. And over the past years, betting against corrections has been not so hot a thing for gold, silver, and the shares. But this time it appears it may be different. And a lot of people are just not going to want to pay up and get on board. And I think that's more likely to happen than the normal standard correction that a lot of people are looking for.
Now, you've talked about recently about how you're not backing down on your prediction that silver will hit $100 an ounce.
Well, I'm an Eric Sprott fan, and the guy's been right over 40 years in his career, and smart as anybody I know. He's even an accountant, and he's a great guy, and he hasn't got this one right yet. And he'll be the first one to tell you. And he doesn't know, if I may speak, from where the silver is coming from, but I'm betting on his track record, and he's a supply-demand numbers guy, and he's talked about $100 silver before, and he's going to be right again. I have the utmost confidence in that, and he's conservative compared to James Turk, which talked about $400 silver the other day. So if we're right about what they've done to get the silver price down to what they did for so long, there's no telling what the price could do on the upside once it breaks out.
Do you think we've hit the bottom now and that there's nowhere to go but up? I know some people see that we're going into a phase of deflation and that the stock market is going to crash and the precious metals are going to crash even further before the precious metals actually go higher. What is your take?
Well, anything's possible, and you always got to be open-minded to it, but I can't see it in any way. I mean, the powers that run the show, the big money and so on, they can see what's out there, and they're going to do everything they can, especially in the United States, an election year, to prevent, they're going to step on the money pedal again. And quantitative easing and money printing and low interest rates, hasn't meant anything, thanks to what the gold cartel has done. But again, if the analysis from my standpoint and Goddard's standpoint is correct, they're hitting the wall. And they won't have the supply to stop it. So, and even if you look at even charts, for gosh sakes, I mean, they're incredibly powerful ones, and suggest that, once this gold cartel, and when it comes to silver, J.P. Morgan and their allies, once they finally lose control, I think that's a process occurring right now, look out. And it's liable to blow people away, that the speed at which the precious metals can go up, and especially silver.
Well, Bill Murphy, thank you so much for joining us today. I guess before we let you go, did you want to share with the viewers where they can find you on the internet?
Yeah, I've been writing this commentary since September of 1998, right before long-term capital management blew up, and do what I can. And people can sign up for 2-week free trials at metropolcafe.com to see if it's of value. And then my colleague Chris Powell does a great job at Goddard.org, and they can sign up for that list, and he puts out some good stuff that's free, and we're going to continue to fight the bad guys, and eventually this is going to be one of the big financial scandal stories of all time when it all breaks.
Are there any last thoughts you'd like to add?
That's pretty much it. It's just that if people aren't on board, now's the time to take a look at it, and maybe we'll get those dips, but the risk-reward ratio is enormous. And even though the shares have gone way up, I mean, when the investing public comes our way in that sector, you won't be able to buy these stocks, and it's just going to be astounding. So that's where I stand, and hopefully the next time we chat, part of it will come into being.
This video was brought to you by ReluctantPreppers.com. Click here to watch Reluctant Prepper's latest interview with Bill Murphy. Is gold finally breaking out of its grinding 4-year decline? Co-founder of the Gold Antitrust Action Committee, Bill Murphy, tenacious crusader against illegal price fixing and renowned expert on precious metal manipulation, returns to ReluctantPreppers.com to weigh at this crucial moment of financial importance. This interview is not to be missed.